Oh hi, here's a trick that's going to be slightly different to the norm. You see, I'm not using a regular deck of cards. In fact, we haven't even got a full deck of cards here today. No, these are special cards. Oh, by the way, hi, welcome to Totally Magic. Glad you can join us. These cards contain symbols that are used in experiments of the mind. They're called extrasensory perception cards. And we have symbols like the cross, the square, the wavy line, the star and the circle. So we have a mixture of symbols on here. Now what I'm going to do is get you to pick one of these. Now it's often said that magicians have the ability to read the thoughts of somebody. They know what you're thinking about your favourite car, what's your favourite colour that you would probably choose. And I'm going to try it with these cards here. You see, in a moment, I'm going to get you to choose a card freely. I'm going to pull cards from the bottom and put them on the top, one at a time, like this. At any point, you call stop and you will remember the card you see on the bottom. Okay, so is that okay? I'm just going to remove cards from the bottom and put it on the top, one at a time. At any point, just call stop as we go through. You want to stop there, are you sure? Now, just to be certain that I don't glimpse your card, I'm just going to look in that direction. I want you to remember this symbol that you see in front of you. Keep that fixed in your mind. In fact, if I give you that card, and if you think I might have X-ray vision, put your hand over the top so no one can see the card you've got. The other cards I'm going to get rid of in my back pocket. You're thinking of one card and one card only. Keep that in your mind, that vision. Now what I'm going to do is take this little piece of paper and I'm going to concentrate on the symbol that you're now thinking of. And as a magician, yeah, I think I've got it. I think I've picked it up. Yeah, you see, what I was doing is concentrating. And while I was concentrating, my head just got in a bit of a spin and I just kept going round and round in circles. And that's when it hit me. Of course, it was the circle that you are thinking of. No, don't tell me. Don't tell me a symbol that you're thinking of, but it's not the circle. And you know what? In a roundabout way, I did think that it wasn't the circle. And while I was scribbling on the paper, I stood back and saw that the little squiggles that I put looked as though they represented the wavy line. No, you're shaking your head. It wasn't the wavy line symbols. And you're right, it wasn't. While I was doodling with the pen, as I looked at you, you seemed too bright to pick something as simple as the wavy lines. And that's when the inspiration came to me. Bright, like a star, the star. And that's what I drew. And it wasn't the star. And I knew it wouldn't be the star, it was too obvious. But I did note the way you picked your card. You were very positive when you said stop. Yeah, that positive feeling, and that's probably why I came to the conclusion that it was the positive symbol. No, it wasn't. So it wasn't this one. But let me tell you something. While I was drawing this, I noted that I was drawing the positive sign within a square box. Not only that, I realised that the circle was drawn in a square box. Not only that, but the star and the wavy lines were also drawn in squares. And as I stood back from this, I noticed it was obvious right in front of me from the very beginning. The whole paper was a square. And I believe that that is the symbol that you chose. Shall we have a look? and there it is, the square. But I know what you're thinking, maybe I got lucky. But the thing is, as a magician, I really did know that this would be the symbol you chose, even before I got here today. And to prove it, I wrote that on the reverse. It really was that you picked a square. Magic is strange. You see, we've just performed one of the easiest tricks ever. And it's one of those tricks that as a magician, you tend to look down your nose at. And the reason being is when we start to learn magic as a hobby, an interest, this sort of magic we find amazing. We think, wow, that's a great trick. Remember the first card trick you did as a youngster, or the first piece of magic you did when you started to learn magic at whatever age, and you thought it was great. But years later, when you look back on that, such as things like the cross-cut force, you think, that will never work. It's too simple. Everyone's going to spot that. Well, you didn't spot it when you started learning magic. And the point I'm trying to make here as we get into the tutorial for this, yes, it is a very basic trick, but don't underestimate how powerful this can be. It's a quick, simple trick that can be made into a full story routine for stage, parlour, or just for performing in front of family and friends. What do you mean? Well, I'm using ESP cards. Okay, there's 5 of these. You could use bits of paper or even bits of cardboard and draw these on. So you don't need to go out and buy these if you haven't got a set of these. But these are known as ESP symbols, and you are going to force one of these cards onto the spectator. That was pretty obvious, you probably knew that. But what makes it entertaining is this bit, because if we do away with this, this could have been a 30-second trick. I could have taken the cards, forced the card on you, looked at you and said, you took the circle with a square, whatever, end of, done and dusted. But to make it more of a performance, you add a bit more to it. And this is what I decided to add. And I kind of like this. It's a novel idea and it plays quite well with the symbols. Now, first of all, you've got to force this on. Now, any experienced magician or amateur out there, you may have noticed that I used a move called the glide. Now, for those of you that don't know the glide, I will put a link to a tutorial below this, but I just briefly go over it now just for completeness. Remember the glide, whichever card you want to force will be on the bottom, okay? And you hold the cards like this, so your hand is arched over the cards, because you're going to use these fingers here to do this, to pull back on the bottom card, okay? Let me turn that over so you can see it a bit clearer. You're pulling back this card, so when you're like this hand here hides the fact that the card has been pulled back. And what you're doing is they think you're pulling out the bottom card. You're not. And you just go through all of these cards. What I'm rotating here is just 4 cards. The 5th one I'm not touching. Now, when they call stop, I then just push these cards back to square them up with that one that I pulled backwards. That's the one that we want to force. So in reality, it looks like this. You say, I'm going to pull cards from the bottom and put them on the top like this. Just call stop at any point. Now, whatever point they stop at, like this, you square them up, you show the card, you force that card. It's a simple move and it's used a lot in magic. It's called the glide. If you've got a better way of forcing the card, do that. I'll leave that up to you. But you force the card on them. In my case, I've used a square because I knew that I was going to use a square piece of paper. That's it. I don't really need to explain any more because that is the trick. Once you've forced that onto them, get rid of these other cards. This is the part that just made it a little bit more entertaining and stretched the trick out into a 2 or 3 minute routine. Once you've forced that, I got a square piece of paper, which I knew was going to represent the symbol. I then folded it into 4 so that I could put some creases in there. I wanted the creases to stand out a little bit. Okay, if they don't stand out very well, I just got a grubby finger and just rubbed it along there just to darken up the creases in here. On the back, I wrote, you picked a square, drew the square on that. The rest of it you can see in the routine. I start with all of them on there except the circle. So that was plain and left in full view. I pick this up, keep it to myself, and I draw the circle on that part there. I then hold it towards the audience like that. Talk about my head was in a spin, it was going round and around as to what you were thinking of, and then it came to me, it was the circle. Now they're going to shake their head and smile because they know you've got it wrong, but you say to them, don't tell me. You see, because while I was thinking of this and in a roundabout way, I knew it wasn't that. And while I was scriggling with my pen, I ended up scribbling some lines, and they look like the 3 wavy lines, and then they shake their head and you look at them and say, so it wasn't the wavy line. And I knew that because you do look pretty bright. You wouldn't choose something as simple as 3 lines. You're as bright as a star. Something along those lines. By the way, all of this very cheesy lines I'm using, rounding circles and doodling and bright as a star, I'm sure you guys have come up with a better little patter than that, but it works for me. A star, and I say, well, no, but you were a very positive guy when you stopped on that card, and I drew this. So you've really gone through this, 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 and this, and then I talk about, I noticed the shape that I was drawing within was a square, and then I open up and open up, show them this, that we've got loads of squares and that the whole paper was square, reveal this, and then as a kicker ending, just to polish it off, is I said, I knew before I came here today that you would choose this out of all of those symbols because I wrote that down, and then you reveal the final prediction. It is a very simple trick, guys, but quick, and I hope you enjoyed that one. Until next time, practice and enjoy the magic.